Hey guys, today I'm getting interviewed by Luke Barton on the Lower Chesapeake Bay Fishing Report. Stand by. Welcome to Inside the Polygraph. I'm your host, David Goldberg, expert polygraph examiner. Join me as I and my guests break down the facts, fictions of polygraph testing, law enforcement, and so much more. Real cases, real conversations. The truth is always revealed inside the polygraph.
Well, guys, welcome to this week's episode, and it's actually a special segment. I'm excited to dive into this topic because it's near and dear to my heart. It's also something that a lot of folks don't know that goes on behind the scenes of, all sorts of things. You've probably watched Maury, you've seen the big fishing tournaments, and then, of course, in the courtroom. But polygraph testing and court-certified polygraph testing at that is really interesting. So I'm excited today to have Mr. David Goldberg with Executive Protection Group Polygraph Service on the show to talk about all things polygraphing. So welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It
Absolutely.
really means a lot to me.
Well, it was cool. We were out there at the Virginia Beach Tuna Tournament hosted by, Bob Sinclair and his team. And the scales were absolutely mayhem. We talked to Bob on a recent episode, and he was like, I wasn't expecting to weigh 8,000 pounds of tuna fish. And you were there hanging out, and we got a chance to meet and talk a little bit. And I was like, you know what? I've always wondered what goes into polygraphing in a fishing tournament. So I got to meet this guy. Got to get a chance to dig into his brain.
Yeah, it was kind of neat. That line, he had never seen that line back up. He had so many boats, so many participants in his tournament. I've been doing his tournament for so long, and I met you. You invited me on your podcast, and I said yes right away.
Here we are. So, just for our listeners, I got to meet you, and I was like, man, I got a million questions for you. But, could you just give us a brief idea of your background prior to the polygraphing business? Who are you? Where'd you come from? How'd you get into this? When did polygraphing tickle your brain and turn into a reality?
Sure. Well, I guess it all started when I was in the military. So after the military, I got out, and then I went into law enforcement. And then after law enforcement, I became a detective while in law enforcement. I worked in homicide.
Mm-hmm.
I worked in sexual assaults. And then, of course, we had a polygraph unit, and I wanted to join that polygraph unit. But there was a lot of old-time polygraph examiners, so you had to wait your turn. But I saw a really big niche as a polygraph examiner to really help solve a lot of cases, more so. So I finally got the chance when there were some examiners that retired. I kept volunteering, please send me. So I finally got that opportunity, which I was really grateful for. And then while I went to school and I graduated, I was the go-to guy for polygraph testing. And I solved a lot of cases and helped a lot of individuals, and victims as well. It wasn't not just solving, cases, but it was also protecting the innocent as well.
Right. Or the wrongly accused.
Absolutely, 100%. And so afterwards, I saw that there would be a very, very big demand for people outside of being criminally charged or convicted to help people. So I decided to expand after my police career and open my own business and help thousands and thousands of individuals who are falsely convicted, accused of you name it, for everything, to clear their name, get closure. And that's what I've been doing now for 24 years.
That's cool, man. It's neat to hear about the Navy experience and the detective experience and we're going to get into it too, like how to become court certified. But obviously you've had real hands-on experience with, the police process of, going through and, looking at evidence and interviewing witnesses. And so you've got that kind of big picture overview that you then were able to take with you into the educational process you went through. So what does it take from a certification standpoint to become court certified polygraph, examiner like you are now?
Sure. It's number one, it's not every examiner is court certified.
Got it.
Without a doubt. Number one, my law enforcement background helps tremendously. That's number one. Second, as a polygraph examiner, once you go through your basic training and your certification, you have to do continuing credited education.
Got it.
So that has to be ongoing. Then what happens is you get advanced certifications. And then, of course, at some point in that time frame, you have to then go in front of the courts and actually testify as a certified polygraph examiner. Meaning, as an advanced polygraph examiner, I have to go in front of a court where everyone says, oh, polygraphs aren't admitted.
Right.
I hear that, I can't tell you, probably 1,000 times, a month, even online. No, polygraphs are bogus. They can't be used. They can't be admitted. I keep telling people that's wrong. It can be. I've testified. So if I've testified in court as a polygraph examiner for polygraph examinations that I've admitted, then I know I'm not dreaming. I know I'm not,
Right. We could hook you up and
Exactly.
test you on that. It's like people have to really understand that there's a sort of separation between the polygraph mechanics and process itself from what the examiner is extracting from that data. So if I'm hearing you correctly, it's like, yeah, you could say the polygraph itself maybe isn't admissible in course, but when it's paired with a professional examiner, that is what is allowed.
And you hit it on the nose. And I tell this to everyone, and I don't hold back. The charts are never going to be admitted as evidence. The charts.
Right.
Okay? That's not going to be admitted. What's going to be admitted is the examiner's professional opinion, his professional polygraph report, and his credibility, his certifications,
right,
and his experience.
Right.
And if he's testified and the judge deems him a subject matter expert, then he becomes a court certified expert in his field. That's how you become a court certified polygraph examiner expert.
Got it. So that's like on the extreme end of things in terms of you're dealing with, criminal and civil court cases, difficult topics like sexual assaults you mentioned, or being wrongfully accused. So where does a fishing tournament kind of enter the scene for you as a polygraph examiner?
Sure. Well, as a polygraph examiner, and I would say as an experienced polygraph examiner, you need to be able to test on every kind of issue that's out there. Every issue. You can't just have blinders on like a horse and just focus on one kind of issue. And there are examiners that only do that, okay? There are examiners that will only do pre-employment. There are examiners that may only do infidelity. But that limits, one, people's issues out there, and it also limits that examiner for experience purposes. So me as an examiner, I can do and deal with every kind of issue out there. So how it works is the fishing tournaments promoters, they would call and they would say, hey, have you ever done a fishing tournament, or can you do a fishing tournament? And I would say, yeah, absolutely. Are you familiar with fishing? And of course, I do love fishing.
Yeah.
So and I would say you would have to like fishing, and you would have to like some kind of sports, because I also have done natural bodybuilding polygraphs as well.
Okay.
So
find out if they're on the steroids
correct,
or the
absolutely,
growth hormones.
without doubt,
right.
without doubt.
Yeah.
So you have to be somewhat into athletics,
right,
in order to understand. Because if I didn't understand the dynamics,
right,
I would think that someone could lie to me.
Right, because you don't understand the context of the questions that you're asking, or the specific nuances that might go into something unique, like the human training, programs, or the fishing.
Without a doubt.
Absolutely.
And so that's how that came about.
And so you've been doing fishing tournaments as a polygraph examiner for how long now?
Since 2005.
Okay. And that's when Bob Sinclair started the Virginia Beach Tuna Tournament as well, 20 years now.
And I have been doing his for that long, and then I've done so many others.
Very cool. So I just got to have the experience of being polygraph tested, examined. I feel like saying polygraph tested is like when a chiropractor says that you got cracked. They're like, no, you got adjusted,
Right,
so we got to make sure we say the right thing.
Right.
So I just got professionally examined by you, and man, it was nerve wracking. Like the setup process, it's like, feels like you're getting wheeled in for surgery. There's all these like sterile things happening, and don't move, and this, that, and the other. So for somebody who's listening, it's like, man, what is it like to get polygraph examined. How does the polygraph test work? Could you break it down? How do these work?
Sure.
What are we measuring?
So, well, we're measuring your physiology in your body.
Okay.
That's flat out simple. We're going to talk about layman's terms. Okay. So I'm not going to really get into the true scientific basis, because then people would be they'll turn off your podcast. And so we don't want that at all.
Right.
But we're going to talk about the basic stuff, which is your physiology.
Okay.
Which means, what do we measure as polygraph examiners? We measure your heart rate.
Mm-hmm.
We measure your breathing. We measure your sweat glands. We measure your pulse. And if people do any kind of movement, we'll monitor that as well.
Got it.
And so that's mainly what we'll measure when we ask specific questions that either a truthful person or a deceptive person will answer. And then what happens is your brain, your physiology will react to those specific questions, and we're going to monitor that on the polygraph, and we'll see it on the charts.
And I heard it on your podcast, which for our listeners, what's the name of your podcast?
It's Inside the Polygraph with David Goldberg.
Yep. Great podcast. Bob Sinclair was on there. You cover some cool topics. You talk about, is it allowed in court? Why is it allowed in court? I listened to several and learned quite a bit. And one thing that stood out to me was you mentioned that you were 100% on your examination since you've begun. And we just did an examination for me. And you asked me at the end, how many questions did you lie on? And I said 2. And you said, yep, and I'll show you. And you were dead on the money. So it is cool to see that when the examiner is asking the questions in the right way, that the results are in fact conclusive. In your opinion, when you look at these, fishing tournaments and you're going to run a polygraph on an angler, how do you know what questions to ask the angler, or what are some of the typical questions that you ask the angler to determine whether or not they've followed the rules and or cheated in a fishing tournament?
Well, that's a great question. First, you have to go through the promoter,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And I always get up with the promoter, always. And I ask him, is there any specific questions you want me to ask on your tournament? That's number 1. Number 2 is I always ask and see, what are the rules? What are the rules of that tournament,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And so there are specific questions that need to be asked. Okay, and then there's sometimes some extra questions, and when I say extra, like customized questions
Mm-hmm.
that the promoter might ask.
Right.
So the main questions that would be asked are, were the lines in the water before the start of the tournament, and were your lines, not pulled out, after the official ending time. That's always.
Yep.
Did you use any inappropriate fishing means or methods to catch the fish on the tournament day you fished?
Mm-hmm.
Did you use, inappropriate or improper bait for your fishing that you caught?
Mm-hmm.
Or if I'm doing a tournament that actually weighs a fish, I might ask, did you place any weights in your fish when you weighed your fish?
Right.
I've done that before. Or did you use any improper methods to catch your fish, where I've, caught people actually doing that before. So, or did you use backing methods to back into your fish, while, fishing. There are a lot of rules, obviously, to certain tournaments. So, yeah, there's a lot.
So as you were talking about that, I'm picturing these different tournaments, and I'm curious. I'm sure a lot of times you've verified that everyone did their job perfectly right, followed the rules to a T, and everything's honky-dory. Here's your check. Merry Christmas. I'd like to know some stories of times that you've caught people cheating or caught people lying. Can you share a story or two of what they lied about or what the event was? Not the specific event, but tell me a story when you caught somebody lying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was a tournament, and I'm not going to tell you which tournament, obviously, but there was a tournament that I was at, big money, obviously.
Hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, absolutely, which I wish I could always get a part of, which I don't. But they used a new chair. It was a portable chair, which, I guess you could strap yourself in, which was not approved because you have to sit in the
fixed chair.
The fixed chair.
Got it.
This was not a fixed chair that they were sitting in. And so they caught the fish without using the fixed chair. which means they could move about.
Have an advantage.
Correct.
If the fish moves on one side of the boat.
And that's what they used.
Right.
And so they used it. It was hooked up to them. And so when I tested them, one of the questions was, because what happened was too, is I think a boat happened to be near them, used binoculars or whatever. And because, once you see a big, huge fish, either jumping out of the air, another boat is hooked up and you're thinking, wow, that's awesome. But then you're also looking and saying, curious, how are they catching that? We're right next to them. And so anyway, I think they reported somehow. They said, you might want to check on that boat. So when I did, and that was a huge fish that they did catch, and then the one question was asked is, did you use any unauthorized fishing methods to catch that fish? Of course, the angler said no. They showed a very strong reaction. Then I had to break it down even more because then I got word that they were using a chair that was not authorized. Then I broke it down to say, were you using an unauthorized, unapproved fishing equipment, such as a portable chair or whatever. Yeah. And then again, said no, failed. They did admit later after the test they failed. They lost, I believe it was $24,000. So you just think about that. That's a lot of money to lose.
Well, what I love about that story is that, yes, they lost $24,000, but the person who played by the rules was awarded that $24,000 that maybe wouldn't have been awarded had you not been there to intervene and discover the truth.
Well, yes, that's true.
Which is why you polygraph at a fishing
And that's why you do. And then what was sad was even though that person lost for the entire boat.
Oof.
That's what's sad too.
It is. Well, and I remember talking with, Bob Sinclair and asking the question of, do you really polygraph all your money winners? And he said, yeah, absolutely. He said, it's 9 times out of 10, it's a total non-issue. He's like, but it just ensures that everyone's kind of mindful of it. And so it's like bowling with bumper guards, and make sure that we get to the pin, so to speak. In your opinion, you've said you're 100% accurate. I just experienced 100% accuracy. Is there any method, whether that's like taking a certain drug or preparing yourself with yoga and breathing exercises or who knows what, can you beat a polygraph?
That's a good question. I always get asked that. You cannot beat the polygraph instrument. What you can beat is an inexperienced, lackadaisical, or unprofessional polygraph examiner, without a doubt. And we said right here, I think you brought it up earlier on your podcast, what happens is if the person who's taken the test is being questioned and the examiner is not questioning them properly, and then they get tested, what happens is they could beat that examiner because the questions were not properly formulated. Or the examiner doesn't care, and so that's how people get past polygraph tests. Nervousness has nothing to do with it. You were nervous. Oh, yeah. You were absolutely nervous. Okay. Matter of fact, you had to concentrate on your questions.
I think I got most nervous when you told me that there was a sphincter pad underneath me. That I was fine with the keep your feet flat and your arms flat, cool. And then you're like, don't do anything weird with your sphincter. And I said, okay, I've never really prepared for that one, but got it. But yeah, it does make you nervous. But like you said, nervousness is not going to cause you to fail if you've got an expert examiner asking the questions.
And neither is medication. And I tell that, or medical conditions, because a lot of people will call me and say, well, I have AFib or I have, high blood pressure, diabetes. Is that going to cause it? Absolutely not. 100%. Have you been accused of one of the following in your life, such as infidelity, custody matters, CPS investigations, or serious criminal matters that you're currently being investigated for? At Executive Protection Group Polygraph Service, we have been helping thousands of individuals for over 24 years, no matter who you are or what you have been accused of, with the highest accuracy, integrity, and overall compassion to everyone's needs. We are not your typical polygraph or lie detection service. At Executive Protection Group Polygraph Service, we are certified experts recognized in courts throughout the country, and we stand by our promise to give you full closure and all your needed answers. Call at 757-495-1301 and visit our website at www.executiveprotection.com grp.com to get started.
In your experience with fishing tournaments, because you said you started back in 2005 polygraphing for fishing tournaments, it seems like the prize pools have done nothing but go up with inflation.
It's crazy.
Have you seen with the dollar amounts going up and bragging rights on the lines, there's a lot of ego in fishing tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen an increase in lying, or has it stayed the same, decreased? Have you seen any correlation there between the money going up and the times that you've caught people not telling the truth?
I've seen attitudes change. I can absolutely say that. I've seen attitudes change. Sometimes I see the same individuals when I polygraph test them. So I keep asking them, what are they doing right?
Right.
Okay, where the other ones are not.
Yeah.
But they're still doing well on the polygraph. They're not doing anything inappropriate. But I'm saying, gosh, what are you doing right that these other, boats are not?
Right.
But no, they're not. I don't see any increase in fabrication or lying. Do I catch them? I can tell you that I catch about one every tournament, a liar. Okay. And what happens normally, and the promoters are pretty good about this, they're just like a professional examiner. We don't want anyone to fail. That's our job.
Right.
If a liar wants to lie or a deceptive person wants to deceive a test, we don't have to help anyone do that, okay? Right. But as a professional examiner, we want to ensure that someone tells the truth, okay, and passes. An innocent person passes. I think the promoters want the fishermen and the captains and all that to do well. So if someone on their boat fails, 9 out of 10 times, the promoters are going to send someone else that may fail to come back and take a test on the boat, so that they can give that boat another opportunity to pass. And that has happened.
That makes sense. And, earlier you said you would have loved to have been part of one of those $100,000 checks.
Without a doubt.
You've got the perfect sampling of, who all the winners are. So you just need to go, take one of those guys to lunch or something, get a spot on the boat next time.
No bribes, no bribes. I take no bribes.
I'm kidding.
I know that, no bribes.
So it sounds like from your experience that for the most part, most anglers are honest. And I'm curious, in your experience thinking about fishing tournaments, has there been any other event or thing that you see happen that you're like, man, I wish this industry or this tournament or this organization would start using polygraphs that doesn't use polygraphs?
I think there are a lot of fishing tournaments that don't. I'm surprised that a lot don't. Mm-hmm. There are some catfish tournaments that do. Mm-hmm. There are, I noticed less and less rockfish don't anymore. Mm-hmm. There are other tournaments that I'm seeing that, like, the bass, you watch bass fish, they don't. It's just, word of mouth that, okay, but I've done tournaments where, you go out and fish, but how do you know they're not hiding them that day, the night before, and then going to their favorite spot, collecting them, putting them in their, water tank, and then saying, I caught it just now. It's all word of mouth. Yeah. There are some tournaments, as you know, that do the GPS, which is great. And then you have to, take a snapshot of it, and that's good. Maybe that's why they don't. Right. And then there are some tournaments that are small enough that they'll have actual people on the boat that are monitors or, but I think polygraph testing is important. I just really do.
Yeah, it seems like it not only ensures that everyone knows that they're playing in a fair fight, but it helps people to enter that fight with the mindset of, like, let's plan to do everything the right way. And I'm sure in your career as a detective, you saw many times where anytime there's an opportunity to gain and there are not tight rules, human nature will often cause people to do the wrong thing.
Cheat, right?
To cheat.
To cheat.
Yeah.
Actually, that's the word, cheat.
We're opportunistic creatures by nature. And unless there's a boundary there to keep us going in the right direction, a lot of times, human nature, we do the wrong thing.
And you know what I hear, too, at these fishing tournaments? I hope I see you, to me. That's what they all say. Oh, I hope I see you. Because if they see me, they're getting a check. Right. And that's a good feeling. They say, God, I hope I get to see the polygraph examiner. Right. Because they know they're in the money. Mm-hmm. And so that's where that they're on the up and up. They're excited. I want to get a polygraph test. Even if they've never taken one, I wanted to go get one.
I remember last year talking to Captain Bill Pappas on Playing Hooky.
I've done Pappas.
Yeah,
I have.
And he said he was like had gone home, and he got the call like, you got to come get a polygraph. And he goes, man, when I got the call that I was getting polygraph, he goes, I got so jacked up. He's like, the room turned electric. I couldn't wait to go see him. And I was like, because he didn't think that he had done anything. Right. And then sure enough, he had. So that was pretty cool. And I'm curious, I'm picturing a scenario where maybe somebody has actually intentionally cheated, and then they get caught. Do people ever go into straight up denial and almost get irate with you for proving them a liar?
Absolutely.
And how do you respond to that?
Absolutely. Well, as a professional polygraph examiner, of course, my law enforcement background, you have to be prepared for conflict. Mm-hmm. You just have to. But how you deal with conflict is based on training too.
Right.
So yeah, what's the first thing? And that's with any child, right? What's the first thing when you confront a child? They're in denial, right? Not to say that the fishermen are children, but I'm saying what I'm saying is it's denial.
We act like children sometimes.
But you catch someone in a lie, the first thing they're going to do is deny. Yeah. And then what's the next thing a person that's lying? They want you to prove that they're wrong, okay? So as a polygraph examiner, I need to prove that they're lying. And a lot of times, sometimes they'll stick, I didn't, no way. And then what happens is you have to prove it. And how you prove it is you sometimes give them an additional polygraph test. Say, okay, well, maybe you didn't fail. Maybe, just maybe you didn't.
Right.
Saying, okay, maybe I did make that mistake.
Right.
I know I didn't.
Right.
But maybe I did. I'm going to give you an additional polygraph test. However, when I do, shame on you if you really fail this. And they always go, come on, bring it on.
Yeah.
And then when they fail that next one, it is game on.
We were talking earlier today, and, I posed the question of, what if somebody says, no, I'm definitely telling the truth. You know what? Go ahead and polygraph me. What is it that they're really saying when they say that?
What they're really saying is, believe me, I'm not lying. So it's psychological.
Okay.
It's psychological.
Got it.
9 out of 10 times when people say, I'll take a polygraph test, they're probably telling the truth 9 out of 10 times. But that 1%, okay, is saying, I want you to believe me, so you let go of the situation and leave me alone. And I am a liar, but I'm hoping you're going to believe me.
Almost like a poker bluff.
Absolutely.
I'm all in.
in.
Polygraph me.
Right.
And they got 7 deuce offsuit.
Correct.
So 21 years as a detective, which I'm sure was times that were very traumatic to experience what you were having to, the content that you're having to look at, the people you're having to interview, and now 24 years of running a business, doing professional polygraph examinations. In your 24 years, what's been the hardest part of this job for you?
The hardest part of the job as a polygraph examiner, I'm going to say this, is to ensure that innocent people do well on the polygraph tests and that I clear their name. Because I ensure that my head goes on that pillow and I sleep good at night, knowing that I did not make a mistake and that I'm not falsely accusing anyone that they're a liar, or I let go of a child predator and that he's going to continue to perpetrate other children, or that someone has been falsely accused of, let's say, molesting their children or molesting a woman or whatever, and I call them, they did it when they really didn't. That's the hardest thing. And I get a lot of, women that have never said that they were a victim of a heinous crime before. And they are finally now at a time in their life or an age in their life where they are now say, I want to prove my integrity. And I say, okay, I'm here for you. Let's prove that, it did happen or it really didn't happen. And if it did happen, I want to be the first person in their life that says, you know what? It did happen. I'm sorry it happened for you. And I give them back their integrity in their life. So that's probably the hardest thing that I go through is I want to ensure the innocent is absolutely proven innocent.
Yeah, you're there present in those transformational or potentially horrific times in a person's life. As the truth is either revealed or some other thing comes out that, they're struggling to face, and now you're able to be there and offer them some peace and some solace. You were interviewing me earlier, and I was a little bit nervous. You talked about the medication can't cause a false positive or you
Correct.
to fail.
False negative. Yep.
Nerves can't cause you to fail. But I'm curious, like, as you've interviewed people, depending on the content, have you ever been surprised by someone that failed or why they failed?
I've never been surprised of someone failing. I think I've been surprised as to what they've told me, and you still have to keep that straight face,
Right.
like they'll come in, and they'll tell me all kinds of things. And I've probably heard it all, but then there might be that one thing that they say, and I go, oh, but I still keep that straight face, but It's like something I've never heard before, maybe. And
catches you completely
it keeps me off guard. Right. But someone failing, no, I don't. One, I always go in with an open mind, always. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference between a professional and non-professional, because I don't judge anyone.
You put your examiner hat on and you...
I don't judge. But the other thing is my polygraph examinations are, and my office is non-judgmental. And I think that's why so many people come to me and they talk to me, because it is non-judgmental. Whereas, if a couple was going through something, mm-hmm. a couple's going to be judgmental against each other.
Right.
When they come to me, and if they tell me they've cheated on each other or they hate each other, I'm going to say, okay, well, good for you, and then let's keep on going.
Right.
Because my job is just to get the truth so that they can get closure. Okay. Right. And I might be the very first person in my job, and in their life that they've ever told something, a secret. Mm-hmm. And that's what my job's all about. And the same and it's really true when it comes to the tournaments. When I'm the first person sometimes that some of these fishermen have ever taken a polygraph test. So they're elated, but they're also very, very nervous.
Yeah.
And I have to calm them down, and I do. I calm them down before the testing. Mm-hmm. And then when it's done and I tell them that they did very well, you should see just the elation on them,
relief and excitement. Yeah.
And it's like, where's the party? Where's the party?
Right. And it's right there because Bob and his team put on that's the best part of the tuna tournament, the parties every single night. And I'm curious too, any advice for if I'm in the tuna tournament or a tournament where I'm going to get polygraphed and I get that phone call and I'm now stoked that I'm about to get polygraphed. Sure. Any advice for an angler that's going to get polygraphed for the very first time?
Yeah. One, don't be intoxicated. And I tell that and I do. I say that. And you'd be surprised that, people think sometimes, well, just like Mr. Pappas, he didn't, but you don't think you're going to get that call. So you might leave and you might just start chugging down because it's hot out on that water. Yeah. It's been a long day. But I tell everyone, don't drink. Okay. So hold on until you know whether or not you're getting that call. Mm-hmm. So no alcohol. Not that and I tell this to a lot of people, alcohol is not going to affect the testing. As a professional examiner, I'm not going to test you.
Got it.
So if you get called, and I've done this many times at the tournament, I smell so much alcohol on you, I'm going to turn you away. So now what happens is they got to call someone else on your boat. And if that delay happens, your boat might not get tested for maybe another day, which delays you either winning or what.
Right.
So don't drink alcohol. Caffeine doesn't affect it, so you can drink Red Bulls all you want. Okay, it just means you might be running in the chair, but I have to calm you down. The other thing is what I'm going to say, if you're just not in the tournament, let's say you're just regularly going to get a test, get enough sleep, mm-hmm. okay, eat something prior to the test, because a real test for a real serious matter can take up to 3 hours.
Oh, wow. And, it kind of goes back and points to the name of your business, Executive Protection. When I first saw that name, it actually threw me for a loop for a second, because I was thinking like, armed defense or this, that, or the other. But as you started to share some of the stories of how you've intervened in folks' lives, I do see how it is protection. You're serving as a sort of guardian angel for some of these folks and these victims. So I think it's really cool what you do. It's been really cool to kind of learn how it works, dive into some of the examples of when people passed or failed. And it just gets me excited to see what you do in the future with the fishing tournaments and other things. And if folks are listening and they're thinking about applications for professional polygraph examination, take tournaments aside for a second. Obviously, criminal things, civil litigation things. Are there other verticals or venues or places where you've seen polygraph be beneficial that folks that are listening might have not thought of as a way to use Polygraph in their business or otherwise?
Sure. If you own your own business, let's say, okay, or you're even working for someone and you've been accused of, let's say, theft, sexual harassment, harassment at the work, and you know you didn't do something, you can take a polygraph test. That's number one. Or if you own your own business and let's say, and I've done this for many, many businesses, you're being accused by a client or a customer of, let's say, theft from in their home. Get your workers tested. You can prove that your employees didn't do it. Prove to the customer they didn't, because now they're making a false claim, maybe for insurance purposes. Your business is saved, and now it's fraudulent on their part.
Got it.
The other thing is for school. I've got parents that have said that the school teachers have, said that Johnny did this or Johnny did that, or sexually harassed, Sally. Yeah. I've done juveniles. They can be tested, or even kids in college. The university will say that you've plagiarized, your paper. I've had parents get their students polygraph tested to prove that they didn't plagiarize and that the school just doesn't like the child,
right.
or the parent didn't pay enough, in tuition or whatever.
Right.
There's all you name the issue, Luke. I have tested for it. There's not one issue I have not tested for that can't be resolved.
That's really cool to hear. So it sounds like it's not terribly unaffordable. It sounds like it's kind of, something that folks have used several times for things, big or small. So
correct.
Does the pricing vary based on the issue at hand or time? How does pricing typically work? Yeah,
pricing is not based on time. It's just based on the issue.
Okay.
Okay. I will take, it doesn't matter. Whatever the issue is, I will take, whether it's 3-5 hours. I've done a polygraph test that took 8 hours before, and I didn't charge any extra.
Got it.
Okay. So, and that's what I give people. So I don't care if I give you the price for the issue. That's the price.
Got it.
And I don't care if it takes 3 hours to 5 hours. I'm going to resolve your matter, and I'm not going to charge you any extra. I lose money sometimes more than I make,
right.
But I'm not there for it. I'm there to help someone.
Right. Executive protection. So I've got 2 final questions
for
you.
Go ahead.
One, you mentioned that you do love fishing. What's your favorite type of fishing to do?
Well, I haven't gone big fishing in a long time. I'll tell you, there's a story real fast.
All right.
When I was in law enforcement, a bunch of the buddies said, hey, why don't we rent a charter boat? We went charter fishing, and I'm a small framed kind of guy. So it was my time in the chair, and I just happened to hook a fish. Okay. It was a tuna. That tuna just wore me down. I'm telling you. So if anyone has never done tuna fishing,
right.
It's hard. It's not easy. I caught a fish. It was 55 pounds, okay, which is a nice size tuna.
That's bigger than any tuna weight in the tuna tournament this year.
Yeah, it was nice size. It took me a long my arms were jello, okay, but that was probably 25 years ago. So I haven't done that kind of fishing at all. Right. I just like regular, just any kind of fishing, just getting on a boat or going on a dock or whatever. So I don't really have anything. You just cast a line and just fish. It's fun. Yeah, it's fun to me.
Absolutely. I think that's what gets us all hooked, is like that feeling of, putting a bait in the water and trying to trick the fish into eating your bait, and then boom, you're tight, and you hear that drag screaming, and it's all exciting.
That's it.
If folks that have been listening, their wheels are turning, and they're like, wait a second, I need polygraph services for my business or for my personal matter or for my criminal case or for my civil case, and they didn't know you existed, and you're right here in the heart of Virginia Beach, Laskin Road area, what's the best way folks can contact you and get set up with you for your services?
Sure. They can call me first if they want at 757-495-1301, or they can go online at www.executiveprotectiongrp, stands for group.com, or they can look me up on my podcast, Inside the Polygraph with David Goldberg, or they can go on TikTok, okay, the David Goldberg.
Got it.
On TikTok, or they can find me anywhere on Google, and I'm here for them. No matter what the issue is, even just call me, okay? The call is free, Okay. I don't, 24/7 is my phone number.
Got it.
And so I'll answer that phone call and I'll talk to someone about anything they want to talk about.
That's awesome. Well, David, it's been a pleasure getting to talk with you and pick your brain and learn a little bit more about how the polygraph works, how it's integrated itself into fishing tournaments, why it's used, how it's proved the truth time and time again. Thank you, man. Thanks for coming on and talking to our listeners.
Well, thank you. I mean, this has been a pleasure for me and an honor that you allowed me to come on your fishing podcast. And I appreciate you letting me give you a polygraph test. Okay. So now you can write that off on your bucket list and tell all your friends that you've taken one. Okay.
Some of those questions were tough, man. I didn't know that you were going to ask me that.
Yeah. Well,
I didn't know I was going to get caught lying either.
Yeah, I know. And you had to think about that, didn't you?
Yeah.
You had to think about which one was I going to tell the truth on and what. And I caught you.
You did. You sure did. And then even the one where I thought I was telling the truth, but you're like, no, just because you didn't say something out loud doesn't mean you didn't think it.
That's correct. Thanks so much for listening. If you truly liked what you heard today, please be sure to rate the show, share with others, and subscribe for more episodes.